Hi, Luke.
Hi, love.
We're meeting to talk about the Joy of Presence
Hmm,
retreat,
hmm,
July 1st through 5th in 2026,
hmm.
coming before we know it. And we've done a couple of interviews, one with you and Vero, talking about framework for integration applications and Alexander technique applications to swimming and the Shaw method. We've talked about framework for integration and Alexander technique applications in yoga, which I'll be looking at. And today I thought I'd ask you a few questions, um, maybe some general questions, but also some specific ones about applications of framework for integration and Alexander technique principles to the practice of meditation. So, my first question for you that kind of segues from that small intro is what first drew you to meditation and the Alexander technique? And how did these practices begin to shift the way you moved and lived?
Well, it came from injury, really. And when injury was no longer a nuisance, it became something that was waking me up. And um, it's rather a difficult way to wake up, you know, pain and not being able to do what you want to do in the moment. But it wakes you up. And that's what brought me to the Alexander technique. And then I decided to train as a teacher and quickly found out that training as a teacher was not going to deal with the things I didn't want to pay attention to. And um, and while I'd been resistant about psychotherapy for years, I decided around the year 2000, 1999, to go and check out a therapist. To cut a long story short, at some point he said, "Well, I think maybe a little awareness would do you some good." And and of course you're giggling, and I'm giggling, and and he gave me a little cassette tape of at the time it was Joseph Goldstein about awareness, and I listened to that tape so much eventually it broke, and um, and that was the beginning of just thinking, well, I could meditate if I'm doing therapy. You know, what's the problem with meditation? And they had a little group, so I started going regularly, weekly, and getting to know a little bit about what meditation entailed. If I remember correctly, in the very first month, there was a small 2 day retreat there about compassion, and I remember being upset the whole time. Like that was my introduction to compassion, just anger and like I was so irascible. I was angry with even the leaves on the trees, if I remember. And so that's my intro. The Alexander technique was a way to unlock things. Psychotherapy was a way to bring about a framework for understanding the experience, and meditation was a way to support inhibition, Alexandrian inhibition, in a more structured way. What I mean by that is in meditation, you are instructed to stop. You are instructed to stop from various perspectives, and that can really be beneficial for someone like me who's highly reactive, highly dissociated, highly willing to do anything at all costs. So the Alexander technique sort of slows you down in body, and you're using your mind for that. But then it was really nice for me, as I like to know what I'm doing, to then have a structure of the mind. And I find that both the Alexander technique and the meditation can come nicely together to explain each other.
So, I'm going to circle back to part of that um, because the end of the question was how did that change or shift the way you moved and lived? In the Alexander technique, we try not to think about outcomes or what we would call end gaining or the without the prior process. But in just some practical terms, what did that mean? What did that change mean for you?
Well, it was life changing. Um, Before the Alexander technique, before meditation, injuries would hit me like a runaway bus. I would be dancing, and the next morning I went to get up, and then I one of my calves wouldn't work, or my back would be out, or there'd be so much pain in my upper back, or my shoulder, or a wrist, or something. It's like injuries would happen to me with no prior notice, and I was always baffled by that. I was just like, well, if I'd felt that, I would have slowed down, of course. Um, so then the idea is, why wasn't I feeling this? What what was going on in the process that all the signs might have been there, but I couldn't feel them? So meditation sort of turned the dial on the radio, those old-fashioned radios where you are turning the dial to try to find the right frequency, and it's sort of like me paying attention to the wrong frequency while I'm dancing, and then the next morning paying the price for that. And meditation really allowed me to notice if I was opening to listen or if I was just forcing to do. Um, Later on, what got transformed as a result is not only to be able to feel it sooner, but to be able um, to notice the anxiety that would come from the feeling of the beginning of an injury, or even the feeling of an injury. So the layer upon the layer of reaction, and to be able to handle that differently. Um, because the meditation allows you, especially with a practice that's embodied like the Alexander technique, it allows you to feel your body um, sort of playing the wavelength of the anxiety, the response, um, and then it gives you a little bit more of an opportunity to decide, what do I want to do next? This is the result of what I did before. So now I'm here. I'm not at the mercy of that. I feel this pain, or I feel this anxiety, or I feel all of it, and I have a new choice to make. And so to me, this again, this interplay in between the body and the mind, and having a clear structure of how the two come together, both from the Alexander technique and from meditation.
So I was going to ask next, but maybe you just answered it. So I'm going to pose the question that I was going to ask next, and maybe you did answer it, and there's nothing more to say. But the question that I was going to ask was, how does awareness training create the conditions for change?
Well, change comes about on its own. And so awareness training, the simplest answer is basically you learn to take your hands off the wheel. Um, I'm watching those videos on Insta, and there's this guy that keeps showing up on my feed, and he's saying there's a certain condition in the race car where, as you're coming at a certain speed and you start to brake and you're going to take a corner, the car can tell you what it needs. And you need to actually loosen your grip on the steering wheel and let the car respond. And often when we watch these videos of these race car drivers, the hands are like going like this, and you're like, what are they doing? Like, how can they move and overcorrect like this so fast? They're not. They're listening to the car, and they're allowing the car to respond in the moment. And so to me, awareness training, whether it's Alexander technique or meditation, allows you to loosen your grip on what you think is needed for taking that curve, for making the change that you're seeing is coming, is needed. And that's of course that was very new to me as a dancer, especially as a ballet dancer. I was convinced that I had to be fully present and fully in control. And I was never trained to take my hands off the mind, off the body, and let it do what it was meant to do. Um, and I was never able to watch that happen, because if I started to watch that happen, I wanted to put my hands back on right away. So the auxiliary technique literally teaches you how to put hands on in a way that you're not overriding the car. You're not telling the body what to do. You're negotiating what the body is responding, and you're just allowing that body to know you're there, and allowing to find its fullest best response in the moment. And I believe that the sensitivity that can be found in meditation, the stability and the sensitivity, and that balance of the two can really help us address change.
Thank you. I know for years we have talked about, as people who teach movement and observe movement and analyze movement and know about the body, that when there is this, I'm going to call it, you can edit this out later if it doesn't work, a siloed kind of approach to meditation where the emphasis is sitting still. And then people in that community or field feel that they need to teach about the body in that stillness. Um, and I know that's been a point of frustration where we've always discussed meditation as something that's woven into movement and not separate from movement. So it's really different to sit still on a cushion, valuing the stillness or what is perceived as lack of movement. So when you say that meditation is something that's woven into movement, what does that look like in for you and particularly in meditation? Because if we will sit together, we will sit still and spend time doing that. But how are we working with that differently?
Yeah, I'm reminded that the first time this made sense to me was in walking meditation.
Mhm.
When walking meditation was explained, and I was able to turn that mindfulness to the activity of moving while walking, and not get lost in trying to control the walking, but to feel the feet, feel the rhythm, feel the connectivity, feel the integration or the disintegration. And so in that sense, stillness is in the ability to not get lost in what you feel, not in not moving. And so then stillness can have quite a bit of movement in it. And so then often dancers get lost because they're being tossed around. They don't realize, and at least I didn't realize, that I was being tossed around holding the tail of the tiger. So I am trying to control that body, but that body is really fighting me and tossing me about. And I don't have the capacity to back up a level and see that play. And I'm thinking that movement is that struggle. And then on the reverse, when I was sitting, I was like, I will make a decision not to move for the next 45 minutes or something like that. And then coming out of there almost with high blood pressure and heart palpitations and all of this, because it's literally impossible to do. So if I applied what I did in dancing to meditation, I almost killed myself. So then once I realized that one was not that and the other was not that, it wasn't about trying to control everything in either situation. It was more about finding the movement in stillness and the stillness in movement. And that is the part that is exciting, really.
I hope this kind of leads to the next question, um, which is how are you, since this retreat is really going to be focusing on the framework for integration, the patterning, the movement patterning that we do um, in primary and secondary and engagements and resets. I'm not going to say any more than that because some people may have never heard of that language yet. Um, how are you working with framework for integration in meditation? And what would maybe be a couple of applied concepts that you would be having participants work with?
So in meditation, there's often clear demands for posture on the cushion. And sort of the demand for that posture is promoted as a foundation in support of a stable mind. And basically saying without that foundation, it's quite difficult to have a stable mind. Um, if we shift that idea from posture to poise, and if we understand poise as this constant readjustment, this constant wave of activity that happens moment to moment, so that means every thought, every decision, every breath, every digestion, every all activity in the body will have an impact on that poise. And so then we can start to see where that poise is not there. And that could be a poise of the mind, but if it is a poise of the mind, then it is a poise of the body. And if it is a poise of the body, it's a poise of the mind. And we can see where we struggle a little bit. And if we can understand that we're struggling, and we can understand, especially from an Alexander perspective, an Alexander technique perspective, that we're struggling because of habitual patterns, then there's a chance to redirect these patterns, not to bring them to, again, a posture, a stacking, something that is like a building, or sometimes a mountain is described. Here we're mostly looking to find a way of explaining to ourselves how we interfere with this equipoise, and then giving ourselves a chance to work with that. Once we're able to understand, um, I I like to arch my lower back.
Mm.
I feel the most stable once I arch my lower back. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting on a cushion, and sitting on a cushion while arching your lower back and holding on to your abdominals and pulling your shoulders back and trying to have good posture is maybe like a clock being right twice a day. You're ready for some activity, but you're maybe not ready for all activity that's possible on that cushion. So then how could your body wave back and forth? And that's really imperceptible. It's very small.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very small activity through the whole body that allows for that body to be a constant wave. But I'm interfering with that wave by providing this idea that my back should be arched, my shoulders are back, my head is doing a certain thing, and then I'm no longer able to notice that my body could be adaptable.
Yeah,
So that's an example,
that's great. And then in the retreat, we'll be talking more about languaging and kind of concrete recognition of certain personal patterns that may or may not show up in all activities, but in meditation, they're there even if they seem quiet.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the advantage of doing this through swimming, yoga, and meditation, is that you are able to notice sort of the theme that keeps repeating as we go along. And then you find yourself thinking, well, obviously this theme is not going to be there while I'm sitting either in a chair or a cushion, or even if I'm lying down, and or even if I'm walking. Obviously, I'm just meditating. I'm not swimming, and I'm not doing yoga, and I'm not going for a walk. I'm just sitting here. And then after a while, you realize, oh, there's a through line here, and I can apply something that allows me to let that body become poise rather than posture.
So I want to be clear to people who might be interested in attending, you don't have to be an experienced meditator to participate, right?
No, you don't. And even the idea that we're not meditators is a little tricky.
Right.
If anyone is able to spend 15 minutes looking at Insta posts, then they're staying focused on watching one thing after another. It's the same as watching thoughts. All it takes is you switch your mind to thinking it's meditation, and it's meditation. So like how many of us can easily spend 15 minutes doing that? So sitting for 15 minutes with a process, and being clear about what that process is, and then um, being able to notice how this is coming at play, it makes you a meditator. You don't have to have special training here.
This is a fill in the blank. If I could give participants one skill to take home with them, it would be
That ultimately awareness is joyful, and it's loving,
mm,
and to just be able to connect with that a little bit, and it can help our days. And really, this is the difference in between dissociation and openness. um, when you open, you start to realize, we're all in this boat together. And yes, there are some things that are working, there are some things that are not working, but the awareness itself is something that is supportive in that moment. And it can have a type of joy that is unhindered from the conditions present. And there's something really supportive about that throughout the Alexander work, throughout activity, whether it's yoga and swimming, um, and then in every moment, every activity, instead of it becoming difficult, it becomes a simplicity of moment that has a certain joy built in.
I think that might be a perfect punctuation point on these questions. Is there anything else that came up for you that you wanted to mention that seems important?
Well, it's just when you said we sit together, and the how much I appreciate that, and how much I enjoy, and miss often sitting with people. And so that's one of the advantage of coming as a group, is that
Yeah,
we're facing these things together quietly, and that is quite lovely.
I'm looking forward to it. I know that very much. Um, Thank you so much for spending this time. To remind people that the Joy of Presence is July 1 through 5, 2026 in Sardinia. And we invite you to have this really special time with us and Veronica Bellon, um, swimming, doing yoga, sitting meditation, receiving Alexander technique lessons, learning about framework for integration, and taking in the beauty of the surroundings,
Hmm.
which come with wine, if that's of interest as well.
Hmm. Wine and good company.
Yes.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Luke.